Welcome to HCS Talks. I'm your host, Superintendent of Hampton City Schools, Raymond Haynes. This is our second season of Hampton City Schools podcast, HCS Talks. Our aim is to educate, inform, and entertain not only our local community, but also listeners beyond. Each episode explores a range of topics, including education, student achievement, and the efforts of our teachers, support staff, parents, and community partners. We'll also highlight various programs, initiatives, and more, providing valuable and insightful content for everyone. To our loyal listeners, thank you for tuning in. If this is your first time listening to our podcast, thank you for joining us. We hope you will stay tuned and continue listening to HCS Talks. Today, I have the opportunity to sit down with Dr. Reginald Johns, Hampton City Schools Director of Academic Advancement and Enrichment. I'm looking forward to discussing our gifted program with Dr. Johns and the benefits of such a program. So before we begin, Dr. Johns, would you please tell the listening audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure, it would be my pleasure. And what a great honor to be here today. I am a product of Hampton City Schools. I am also a native of Hampton. And I had the opportunity to matriculate and graduate from the Bethel High School class of 1987, as well as return here as a professional and a teacher in Hampton for many years, probably over 21 years, serving in the classrooms of Hampton before I became a director of our gifted department, the Academic Advancement and Enrichment Department.
So, I did know that you were a Hampton City Schools graduate. I had forgotten that you were a Bruin. So, what elementary school and junior high did you attend?
Sure. So, in kindergarten, I started off at Aberdeen. First grade, matriculated to Mallory. Mm-hmm. And by second grade, they had me set at Caesar Tarrant Elementary. I went there through sixth grade, and in the middle school, 7 through 9, I attended Thomas Eaton. And, of course, Bethel High School, 10 through 12.
Proud Bruin.
Woo-hoo.
So you have siblings that attended through Hampton City Schools? Are you an only child or?
Sure. I have a brother, 2 years my elder, who also attended the same schools in Hampton.
All right. Is he an educator as well?
My father actually had a two-profession career. One was in the military, the other was in education. I followed the education track. He followed the military track.
All right. So he got the best of both worlds. Mm-hmm. Best of both worlds. So tell us, Dr. Johns, what does it mean to be gifted? A gifted learner, what does that entail?
A gifted learner is a student who has outstanding intellectual ability or outstanding artistic ability. So this can be shown either in achievement, let's say in grades, or it can be displayed in what we call intellectual reasoning or ability reasoning.
So you mentioned intellectual or artistic.
Correct.
So can you expound a little bit more about the artistic side of being gifted?
Sure. So an artistic student may have motor skills or have ability beyond their grade level. So they're able to see, conceptualize, and produce work at a higher level than their peers, and very similar to a gifted student. So a gifted student is showing up on the higher level of, let's say, the bell curve, right, where they're able to demonstrate how they are several deviations above the mean.
So I know that there are some assessments for you to determine whether or not a young person could be identified gifted, but did I hear you mention some aspects of being some nonverbal assessments as well, or how does that work?
Great question. In kindergarten through second grade, we identify students to have gifted potential, and they participate in what's called the talent pool. And this talent pool, like the gifted program, uses multiple criteria to determine eligibility for the program. One is ability testing, and the screener we give across the city is called the NNAT, the Naglieri Nonverbal Ability Test. But in conjunction with that test, we also provide students to show who they are and how they think verbally. So we provide an interview. And so the evaluator asks the students several different questions, and when we kind of look at their responses to look for evidence of creativity.
Okay.
Do their responses show empathy?
All right.
Do their responses show understanding of big ideas or large connections, concern about the world or big problems? Do they show or demonstrate wit or a sense of humor? When responding, do they show, let's say, the use or the ability to use an advanced vocabulary? Or do they think outside of the box,
Right.
so to speak?
So I said nonverbal. I guess what I should have said was the verbal part of the assessment, right? Or did I?
Well, the Naglieri is a nonverbal assessment.
Okay.
So it is excellent tool because it has shown not to be culturally biased.
Okay.
And it looks at how a student reasons through shapes. So if I give you a picture, can you identify the part of the picture that is missing?
Oh.
Or if I give you a series of shapes, can you see a pattern developing and then project what will be the next shape or the next two shapes in the series?
Makes sense. Makes sense. Thank you for clarifying that for me, sir.
My pleasure.
What are some of the main benefits for students enrolled in a gifted program?
One thing that my dad used to tell me is that he said, when he would interview me when I came home from teaching, he said, "Did you turn the lights on?" So when working with a classroom, you're always looking for a way to connect students with something they're interested in, something that they did not know, and really hone in on curiosity to really increase that intellectual development. So we have two different programs. One is really enrichment based, the other is acceleration based, where we are presenting information to students, hopefully, to turn that light on,
Right.
to give them those learning experiences where they're excited about what is in front of them, but they're also excited about what they're going to learn and hopefully be sent out with questions on their own where they can do their own research and then come back and share what they have gained or grown in their understanding.
Nice. I get it. So, Dr. Johns, what is the difference between being gifted and simply being a good student?
You would think that they go hand in hand,
Yes.
but sometimes they don't.
Okay.
Sometimes gifted students show a myriad of characteristics that may question someone being gifted. So, for example, they could not be highly organized, but a good student might be highly organized. They may ask questions, but maybe not the questions you think are totally aligned with the content that you're sharing. Because in their mind, they could be making connections quicker and ready to move forward to a larger generalization, a theme, or an interdisciplinary connection.
Makes sense.
Sometimes gifted students have a fast acquisition of knowledge, and so they are able to kind of move quickly through what you have taught and then ready for something new even before their peers are ready. So that's why we have two different programs or experiences for gifted kids so that during their school year they're learning something new and they're learning at an appropriate level of challenge. They're ready to move forward to the next step.
Looking at that rigor and
Yeah.
making certain that they're prepared as they go through each phase as well. So let's talk specifically about Hampton City Schools. Can you give us an overview of our division's gifted program?
So as I mentioned, the talent pool program, K through 2 is a program that is used to evaluate students. So we're looking to see, if I give you this, how are you performing? Where are you showing your peaks? What are your strengths? As well as, are you shining as a gifted student? So a student as early as kindergarten can be referred for the talent pool. And that kindergarten year, first grade year, second grade year, they're working with that gifted resource teacher in a pull-out program, 1 hour a week, where they are presented different
So 1 hour a
challenges
week in their respective schools.
in their zone schools.
Okay.
But we try to hop into different disciplines.
All right.
So if the student's strength, let's say, isn't in a verbal area, we'll have a lesson on spatial reasoning, or we'll have an opportunity for students to do coding, or we'll have an opportunity for students to look at animals. So hopefully there is something that connects to the student, makes them excited, and then we can see how they persevere, how they deal with productive struggle, how they are able to make connections or to show forth their own level of strength.
Makes sense.
When we look at our 3 through 5 programs in the Gifted Resource Program, we do novel studies, but in those novel studies, we have an opportunity to delve into some themes. And we have an opportunity to look at some literary devices and use those higher level um, reasoning that you would find in an upper level language arts class. So, for example, in 4th grade, we're reading a story called Friendle. No, I apologize. It is 3rd grade. Students are reading a story with Friendle, where a kid gets a great idea and has to determine, what do I do with this idea? What is the best way to make this idea so broad that everybody knows it and adopts it? And so we pull students into evaluative experiences, which of course is a higher level of Bloom. Is the student a good student, or is the student a troublemaker? And so they have to look for tech support and, of course, make evaluative judgments based upon what the character has done, what the character has said, to determine or to debate, whether or not this student is making good decisions.
This is in 3rd grade.
And then we're challenging students to develop their own ideas, like an invention convention, or what would you do to promote an idea that you have? How do you shelter your ideas so your candle isn't blown out by someone else, but is allowed to grow and to develop? And then, of course, in 4th grade, we're dealing with pre-algebra concepts, but we use manipulatives called hands-on equations. And that's where students are isolating for one variable and 2 variables and positive and negative numbers and solving linear equations. And they're using manipulatives.
So with this, Dr. Johns, are they still in the resource aspect of receiving services, or are they actually in the gifted center?
All of this great stuff is happening in the resource
All
program.
right.
Yeah, and they get an opportunity to work with robots, and they code robots and have them complete different functions, etc. So, as a previous resource teacher, 9 years in the trenches, they're having a ball.
Yes, sir.
And so the center is a place which is a special learning environment. The student looks to the left, the student looks to the right, and every student is a gifted student.
Right.
But every student doesn't have the same strength. Every student is not in the same class. And even though they may be in the same grade, but hopefully every student is receiving an appropriate level of challenge.
So that instruction is differentiated based on those students' needs as well and how they identify as gifted.
Correct. But we do have different on-ramps to differentiated instruction. So we're equipping every teacher in the Hampton City Schools family with a differentiated curriculum. So a teacher in third through eighth grade can look down in their social studies or in their science unit and see opportunities for enrichment. That's where the gifted curriculum is
Right.
heading out or hanging out. We have lessons on De Bono's thinking hats, lessons on Kaplan's icons of depth and complexity, lessons on Socratic seminar, or lessons on building a Freya model or providing a choice menu for students to do different projects based upon these SOLs that they're learning. So the differentiated curriculum is spreading out, but it's also, in one particular place too, which is in the Gifted Center.
Makes sense. What about the Excel Art program? Can you speak a little bit about that? And then also, what are they receiving once they get to high school?
The Excel Art program is an opportunity for students not only to be identified with um, artistic ability or high artistic ability, but also receive more specialized instruction.
Mhm.
So, and they get an additional art time with that art teacher during the course of the year, and then choose one or two pieces that they would like to highlight and focus to be exhibited in a gallery or exhibition at the end of the year.
Okay.
In the middle school level, that program is held during the summer, 2 consecutive weeks, or about 4 hours a day, or where the teacher works with small groups and then provides that additional instruction. And then, of course, in high school, there are AP art courses students can elect to participate in to hone their skills. And in addition, we sponsor what is called the Summer Residential School. And the Summer Residential School is a program that is held on a college campus. It invites students from all over the state of Virginia, but these students have a similar passion in that area of arts. So there is a visual arts component, there's a dance component, there's a theater component, there is a singing component.
Visual and performing arts.
So
Nice.
it pulls all those students together. But one part of that application is presenting a portfolio. So if a student has participated in Excel Art over a series of years, and we begin identifying the spring of second grade, they are also building a portfolio of work that they feel proud about and demonstrates their skill ability and creative vision.
Wow. So as early as second grade, they're working on building a portfolio, just preparing them for life as they matriculate from one grade level to the next. And you mentioned it's actually held on a college campus. Is it a particular college campus, or do you rotate, or how does that work?
This one or this program is at Radford
Okay.
University, but the residential governor school also has programs for mentoring programs. So there are students who apply for engineering or students who apply for mathematics. There's also a program for not architecture, excuse me, agriculture, as well as just other areas of
Hmm.
interest.
The agriculture, is that at, that's not at Radford, is it?
That one,
Tech?
I believe it is at Virginia Tech. So William and Mary houses some students, Virginia Tech houses some students, as well as Radford.
Yes, sir. Great opportunities and great enrichment opportunities for our young people. I think it further prepares them for life beyond K 12 education as well. And you're looking at skills that they acquire, critical thinking skills, and being able to work in groups cooperatively. I think it's part of life skills as well. So it's exciting. So tell me, Dr. Johns, how is a student identified or qualified for our gifted programs?
Wonderful. So students in 3 through 12, we use multiple criteria for determining eligibility. We look at their report card grades. We obtain ratings from parents and teachers that show the characteristics of giftedness that's shown at home as well as at school, in addition to ability tests. And we take all of this information, we turn it into a matrix score, and that matrix score determines A, if a student is eligible or ineligible, and then B, if the student is eligible, where services will be provided.
If the student is ineligible, is there an appeals process, or do they have to reapply next year? How does that work?
If a student is found ineligible, the parent looks at the information after they receive it in the mail. They look at the testing information, etc., and then they contact my office and they can formally request an appeal. And so that appeal brings in an additional administrator, a resource teacher, as well as the parents, and they get an opportunity to share things that should be considered in the eligibility decision, as well as maybe some circumstances that could have negatively impacted one of the criteria that we look at. So maybe the student was sick when they took the test. And so we look to see, is there another test that we can administer to get that ability test score?
So there is some level of subjectivity with this.
Turning the scores into a matrix kind of removes the subjectivity and makes it more objective.
Okay.
But we do look at multiple measurements.
Okay.
So, for example, we can use two different teacher ratings.
Okay.
One teacher rating is a checklist of general characteristics. The other one is called the SIGs, which makes a percentile of the different scores that a student performs or that the teacher rates the student in a subject by the grade. So sometimes when a teacher looks at a student, they may look at, work habits.
Right.
They may look at how fast the student obtains knowledge of information.
Right.
But then there's another rating that kind of puts that together and they say, well, what's his behavior like in science? What's his behavior like in math? What's his behavior like in language arts? And so there you can see, does one of these subject areas have a peak that could have been lost if we looked at every subject together globally?
So that makes sense. I sort of have to back out of the subjectivity part because you do have to have a process that is fair and it does not lend itself to someone sort of kind of arbitrarily saying, yes, this child or this student is identified gifted. You work with the matrix and the data that's presented, and then you go from there. Am I correct on that?
That is correct.
All right.
Now, when you talked about if a child is found ineligible, we do allow a child to be re-referred, but sometimes it takes a calendar year before those tests can be re-administered so that they are still valid. The results are valid.
Makes sense. So how does the program support gifted students in areas beyond academics, such as social emotional needs?
Our teachers who work with students receive special training. And one of the graduate courses that they have to take is the social emotional needs of gifted students. And in that class, you look at how that high mental ability can impact the social development of a child.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes there is what we call asynchronous development, where the student is very strong in one area, but in another area, it looks like they are on grade level. That means the 8-year-old is acting like an 8-year-old.
Right.
But, in one area, he could be acting like a 13-year-old. There's a peak and then there is a normal performance. There are other things that gifted students deal with, like Dabrowski's overexcitabilities, and which are ways that gifted students may move through the world. And so that could be psychomotor, that could be um, dealing with touch, that could be how sensitive they are, etc. So these teachers are really trained in how to help students kind of understand their giftedness, and then, of course, how to maximize it.
It's an excellent description of that because what I gather from that is, although chronology wise they may be eight, they may be performing a particular task or a lesson activity at a 14 or 15-year old's range. But emotionally, they are still that 8-year old and trying to work through the complexities of all of that. It takes a certain skill and training with that as well. Did I get that right?
That is correct. That is correct. Having a class full of giftedness does not mean your day is full of tea and cake.
Right.
You might have some eggs.
Yes.
Some flour. You might be building things as you go. Yeah.
I appreciate
Good
that.
work,
Yes,
but
sir.
hard work.
Yes, sir. Dr. Johns, how can parents or guardians best support their child who is enrolled in the gifted program or in a gifted program?
I would say help your child develop their curiosity. And so part of that is providing experiences to your child in an area that they have an interest. Because that is very key. Because an interest helps connect two different parts. It helps connect the intellectual part of a student, and then it also connects that emotional or that heart part of the student. So that when they are pursuing a topic or involved in something that they really love and enjoy, that motivation is more intrinsic than it is external. So I would definitely begin to open up that discussion with your kid about what they're interested in or what do you think about that, and then provide opportunities for them to ask questions, to learn more, and then to experience. Sometimes giftedness or gifted students deal with underachievement.
Right.
And so on the outside, it may look like you have so much potential, you have so much ability, and you're not doing X, and you're not doing Y, and you're not doing Z. One thing that giftedness does, it is allows students to see what the expert knows, what the expert does, and then they compare themselves to the expert's ability. And because they may not know all the steps sequentially to get to from being a novice to an expert, they could feel stuck. And when they can't figure something out, that might be when they draw back. So a parent can help their students by asking questions and then providing smaller choices. If we did this, do you think we would get here? If we did this, do you think we could get here? I've given you two choices. Which one do you want to choose? And so providing those experiences and then, of course, helping them kind of find that path to where they want to go would really benefit them.
It's great insight. What advice would you give to parents considering the gifted program for their child?
So often I hear parents think that one program has it all, but I do want to really hone in on that appropriate level of challenge. So appropriate level of challenge means we look at past performance, we look at areas of strength, and then we try to find ways to develop areas of strength. So I really want parents to be strength-minded or strength-based in their advocacy for their students and find ways that gifted program can really serve those strengths. So if a student is really strong in math, we have accelerated programs, like I said, at Kilgore, where students are able to go all the way to Algebra 2 as an eighth grader.
Right.
I didn't get to Algebra 2 until I was in 10th grade. So these students.
I'm sure you excelled in it. I was going to back up a little bit because I was going to talk a little bit about your own giftedness, sir. there. I think you're selling yourself short in terms of your level of giftedness as well. So when did your father realize that you had it as well?
I would say that I am a person who is musically inclined.
So it's on the artistic side.
I was not only first chair at Thomas Eaton, but first chair multiple years at Bethel High School playing the clarinet.
All right. And where did you go to school after you left the halls of Bruin Country?
I went actually with 13 other graduates of Bethel High School to UVA.
All right, a wahoo.
Oh, wahoo. And there I majored in urban planning.
Mm-hmm.
And following, I went to Hampton University and my master's program and majored in elementary education. And I have been in the school system ever since.
And we are so fortunate to have you here. Now, one of my endorsements was from the University of Virginia. That's where I had received my education admin endorsement from the University of Virginia. I had a great time and great experience there, and still stay connected with one of the professors there. So always good to connect with a fellow Wahoo. It's pleasing to have this conversation with you on this podcast, A Phantom in a Bruin. So good connections as well. Dr. Johns, any final thoughts or important points you want to share with the listening audience?
I would just like to restate that we can all help students grow and learn by providing experiences that are new and novel, and then providing opportunities and venues for students to pursue their interests and really become students who grow into their ability. One thing about talent development is that we realize that the brain has the ability to grow and learn new things.
Yes, sir.
Which is, one of the premises of the growth mindset philosophy, where the mind has the ability to make new connections or make new connections between what we know and what we want to know, or what we did know and what we're going to learn in the future, and find how things fit together and how they belong together.
Absolutely.
And so sometimes when that gifted student is asking questions, they're not doing it because they want to get on your nerves. They're doing it because they want to know.
Right.
But because information is everywhere, providing that safe venue where students can grow and learn can happen anywhere. It can happen at home. It can happen in a special program. It can happen in the traditional classroom. If a student is, looking at a book while you're teaching, it's probably because that book has something in it that they want to know.
Yes, sir.
And when we pursue that and help students really grow how to become creative thinkers and seekers out of their own information, we're hitting the mark. We're turning the light on.
Well, I often talk about brand ambassadors. I can't think of a better brand ambassador for the gifted learner than Dr. Reginald Johns. Your passion about this work is rather infectious, and I can see why you are the director of academic advancement and enrichment for Hampton City Schools. Very fortunate to have you on our team, sir. And we thank you for being here today and highlighting the importance of academic advancement and enrichment. I am certain our listeners have taken away valuable insights from our discussion, whether they are an HCS parent or even a parent from another school district who is hoping to become an HCS student and parent as well. And to our listeners, remember, education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. As one community, one transformation, we will ensure academic excellence for every child, every day, whatever it takes. We will catch you next week.
Listen to learn more about Hampton City Schools. New episodes of HCS Talks drop on Thursdays. Subscribe and listen to HCS Talks. HCS Talks is a Hampton City Schools production.